will be between Azgerod and Gaddis Lagstins. Lagstins is taking the position that veganism is wait.
Veganism is an agenda and humans are carnivores.
Exactly. Veganism is an agenda and humans are carnivores. You
That's
will
right.
be playing the character Gaddis Lagstins.
Yep.
To both competitors, good luck. You guys have the floor.
Okay, you go first, my dude.
Okay, so let's first talk about the agenda thing. You know, you're going to concede this in like 5 minutes, because if you look up on the Googles, you take a search engine of the Googles, which I have right now on my computer desktop. Yes?
Me too.
And you type in the agenda definition. You type in agenda definition in the search engine of the Google, and you get the definition for agenda. What I'm seeing here, it says, first, a list of items to be discussed at a formal meeting. That obviously is irrelevant, but a plan of things to be done or problems to be addressing. That is another definition of the agenda. Okay, so an agenda.
Okay, I think the one you're looking for is the underlying intentions or motives of a particular person or group.
I mean, that one, yes, and the one above that. But yes, you're on the right thing here.
Uh-huh.
So, a plan of things to be done or problems to address. The thing to be done is to go vegan, and the problem to address is ethical problem, health problem, environmental problem that the vegan bring up, you know? So it fits that. And then the underlying intentions or motives of a particular person or group, which is vegan activists spread veganism, and veganism thus is their agenda, which is to push forth the motive of making people to go vegan, which is an anti-human agenda because humans are carnivores.
Mm-hmm.
So do you concede this or not, based on the definition?
Do you want me to directly talk about that first point, or do you want to do the carnivore one as well? And then I can respond to both. What do you want?
Well, first, let's talking about the agenda first. Yeah.
All right. So just before I go into it, I just want to say like one brief overall thing, which is your proposition is a conjunction of two statements, right? You've got the veganism is an agenda, and then you also have humans are carnivores. So my position is veganism is not an agenda, or humans aren't carnivores, because I'm negating your proposition, right? So yeah, let's start with veganism is an agenda. So as you've pointed out very helpfully, the definition of an agenda is the underlying intentions or motives of a particular person or group, or if you want a plan of things to be done or problems to be addressed. You seem to have taken on both of these. So I'll deal with each one. I'm going to show that it's not an agenda in either of these senses. So veganism, the definition of veganism is the practice of eating only food not derived from animals, and typically of avoiding the use of other animal products. So veganism is a practice. Now I contend that practice cannot be an intention, nor a motive, nor a plan. There can be plans, motives, and intentions relating to practices, such as the intention to put a practice into action, the intention or the motivation to do so, or a plan to do so, but it is not the practice itself.
I have the veganism definition right here. It says an individual who follows the diet or philosophy is known as a vegan. So it also admits here that veganism is a practice, it's a philosophy, and if you ask any vegan, you know, they may say it's their ethical ideology, or they may say that they're, you know, it encompasses multiple types of things. right?
Sure. So we can keep going and finding more and more definitions to see if one of them fits like your proposition. But sure, let's go
Well,
with that one.
I can explain to you right now why veganism is an agenda based on the definition, because if an agenda, what's that?
That definition? Like that new definition? Sure. Go
Well,
ahead.
we know that, you know, veganism as a practice and as an ideology, as a
Mhm.
practice
Sure.
and as an ideology, veganism is intending to do something, and that's something that it's intending to do. That's something that is intending to do is to eliminate the use of animal products, right? And so the vegan agenda, or the agenda of veganism, or in other words, what veganism is the belief in the agenda of eliminating animal products from being used, right? Does that make sense?
Not hugely. I the thing is that veganism, like, there's only a couple ways to think about it. You can think about it as a practice, or you can think about it as like a belief or a set of beliefs or something. But it's not a plan. Like vegans have plans. Perhaps like some societies of vegans have plans, but veganism itself is not a plan, nor is it an intention or a motive. It's a belief system or like a practice or a set of practices. It's not. Again, these things are related to the ideology or to the practice, but they're not the practice or the ideology themselves. So no. But
Many vegan
if you want to change like what you meant by the proposition to being that vegans have an agenda, then sure. But veganism itself is not an agenda.
Well, I've heard vegans themselves describe veganism as essentially the belief in reducing as much as possible the use of animal products. And
That's fair.
so veganism is a belief, as also the ism at the end denotes. It is
Mhm.
an ideology essentially, but the ideology is to believe in an agenda, or it's an ideology that believes that you should push a specific agenda, which is the agenda of removing animal products.
Yeah, I mean, you could maybe argue if you go with like that hyper-specific definition from like some vegan you claim you have spoken to. You could like say that veganism is a belief in an agenda, maybe, but not by any of the definitions that I've actually seen on the internet. And also, you have to kind of like infer that that's what their belief is actually in, is in that agenda. It's not like explicitly stated, but um, it's a bit of a stretch. I would have to say like you should probably just switch it to like veganism is a belief. Yeah, veganism, vegans have agendas. Like, you know what I
Well,
mean?
let me put it this way: if I believe that it's unethical to use animal products,
Yeah.
you know what I do? I decide that what I should do is try to get animal products removed from the market. Essentially, I try, you know, what veganism is when you decide that using animals is unethical, so then you begin to eliminate them. You put into practice a series of steps essentially to eliminate animal products from your own use, and to try to push the idea onto others that you should not use animal products. So veganism is literally an agenda, because what you do is
Well,
you say that this is wrong, so I'm going to take these steps called veganism to get rid of it.
you should be careful with the word literally because no, literally it's not. Literally, it's an ideology or a practice. But you could say that it's the basis for an agenda because that's what you just argued for. You said that based on the belief that people should not consume animal products, you should therefore go out and stop other people from doing so, or you should at least not do so yourself, right?
But veganism
this
itself
is
encompasses all of these things because it is both the practice, ideology, and agenda all in one. So it
no
is an
veganism.
agenda.
No, veganism is just the practice, veganism or just the ideology. I've never seen a definition of veganism that was like saying like the widespread, like the attempt to cause people, or that it's a like a movement or something. It's always defined as just a personal belief.
Well, if you're
And
practicing veganism, then what you're doing is you're actively attempting to systematically eliminate animal products while also sustaining your own survival, while eliminating them from your diet. And you're also, most vegans would say that it's your duty, since you believe in these ethical things, to spread the agenda of veganism as a vegan. So if you're doing your veganism like a good little vegan, then you are doing the vegan agenda, and you are spreading a vegan agenda as part of
so,
veganism.
so first of all, again, you're just repeating the argument that like vegans have agendas, or that based on the belief that vegans hold that they usually like gain an agenda because of that. So that doesn't support what you're saying. But furthermore, many vegans, including like myself and all the time that I've been vegan, is I do not try to systematically change other people. I just don't eat meat. So for me, it's just the ideology and the practice. For other people, it's literally just the practice. It's not the case that it's an agenda. No definition that we've come up with so
So
far.
many vegans have had veganism spread to them, such as yourself, and they don't try to spread it. But that doesn't negate the point, because in reality, why are you vegan? Because someone preached the veganism to you. You got indoctrinated with the vegan agenda. That's a systematic agenda, and you are a victim of the vegan agenda, and yet you don't even realize it exists.
Sadly, your claim, your proposition was not that vegans push agendas. It was that veganism is an agenda. So what you're arguing for doesn't support your proposition. But I think it's time to move on to humans aren't carnivores, because I think what's been said is what we're going to say about this. So the definition of a carnivore is an animal whose food and energy requirements derive solely from animal tissue or meat, whether through hunting or scavenging. Okay. I'm afraid like we very, very clearly can gain energy through non-meat. We can get energy, first of all, through other animal products such as milk and cheese and stuff like that. But of course, we can also get our energy through fruits and vegetables and nuts and so on and so forth.
Okay,
This
so
is
that
like
means we can burn calories
amply
and we
shown by
can.
people who are vegans for many years and don't starve to death.
Okay, so that means we can burn calories from plant foods, and we can absorb maybe, carbohydrates as fuel from plant foods. But what does that even mean? Like, it doesn't mean you can survive on only that.
Well, no, but like I never specified what particular things we can like burn or consume from plants. You're just like straw manning that or something. What I was saying is that our food and energy requirements are not derived solely from animal tissue or meat, as is evidenced very clearly by the number of vegans who go for many, many years, sometimes their entire lives, without eating any meat. And as I say, we're not just talking about plants and stuff like that. We're also talking about other animal products besides meat, because your statement is specifically about meat. People who eat dairy are not carnivores, right? So you can very clearly get nutrients through milk and other things. Like for example, human babies drink their mother's milk, and they obviously gain their nutrients and energy requirements from this. This isn't meat, so I mean, it's very clear that humans aren't carnivores.
That doesn't
And
even make any sense. How does that negate that humans are carnivores?
okay, so humans are carnivores. So if we decompose the word carnivore into its definition, the statement is humans are animals whose food and energy requirements derive solely from animal tissue or meat. Okay, this is false, as is shown by the fact that we derive energy requirements from
The only
milk
food group that you
and
can eat, if you only eat one food group, if you were only to eat one food group, the only one you could get all the nutrients from is meat. If you tried to survive only on grains or only on fruit or only on vegetable, you would die. But if you consume only meat and you eat organs, if you drink enough blood and eat enough organs and eat enough muscle meat, then you can survive because your body will produce ketone. You do not need the carbohydrate. So it's the only single food group that you could actually live only on that one food group.
That may or may not be the case. I haven't done any research on that, but I'll take your word for it. If your proposition
has every
was,
single nutrient, there's no other food group that has every single nutrient.
I'll just continue with where I left off before you interrupted me. But if your proposition was that meat is the only food group that a human can solely survive off of, then I'd grant I'd grant this to you if your statement wasn't a conjunction and I'd already shown that veganism is an agenda to be false. But sadly, that isn't your second proposition. Your proposition is that humans are carnivores, right? So even if meat is the only single food group that can be the basis for an entire diet, that doesn't mean you cannot combine multiple food groups that are not meat-based and get a full diet from them, which is obviously the case given that vegans survive for their entire lives without eating any meat. Like, you can't argue, there's no way to like argue against like the observed facts. There are just people who eat for their entire lives without eating any meat and survive fine.
Long-term vegans are extremely rare, and there's no actual proof that they even exist. Most vegans are only vegan short-term. Like veganism, like the average vegan, they don't even last 10 years on veganism. They go back to eating meat.
I mean, no, there are people in this Discord who are long-term vegans. Like, you're just wrong. I mean, I don't know. We'd have to ask them, but I don't know the.
Everyone who tries to be a long-term vegan, I guarantee they will deteriorate.
Well, okay, like, so we're talking about like food and energy requirements, right? Like, how long would you have to be able to survive before you're like, okay, well, clearly you don't need meat? Like, I personally
can't tell you an exact time, but I can tell you that there's over 15 nutrients that you cannot get unless you eat animal products.
Over 15.
There's over 15 nutrients that you cannot get from plants.
Sure, but what about like milk and like other animal products?
That's an animal product.
We're not talking about animal products. We're talking about meat. You said they were carnivores. That's only eat meat. That's like can only eat meat when you're getting nutrients from stuff. That's like you can only get nutrients from meat. So no,
that definition is incorrect.
No, it's not. It's the one on Wikipedia. I don't know. Like, what do you want me to do? This is like what
doesn't even matter because you literally cut out very completely. Only eat meat and survive, and that's the only food group that you can do that.
No, that's just not what a carnivore. That's not what carnivore means. Like, in no colloquial meaning does carnivore mean a person for whom eating meat is the only like food group that you can you can eat on its own.
I didn't say that. I
didn't not at all the definition. Like nobody means it to mean that.
I didn't say that as the definition.
Okay, but that's what you're implying by your argument. But like
no,
people,
no.
Go ahead. Okay. Go ahead.
All right. You're basically just strawmanning me at this point. I mean, you obviously.
Well, sorry, I thought that's what you meant, but
you obviously lack the fatty acids in the brain. You cannot comprehend my words properly because you lack the fatty acid.
Okay.
How are you going to get the fatty acids with seeds? You know.
Good question, dude.
You don't even get enough omega-3 for your brain to process my words.
Sure, but like, if I was strawmanning you, please rephrase what you were saying because that's what I thought you were saying. But
what I'm saying speaks for itself because
it does.
If humans can like survive completely on only organs and meat and like blood, but they cannot do this on a vegan diet without taking a bunch of supplements and like forcing themselves to eat things that they don't even enjoy eating, covering it with sauce and having to cook it to even digest it. Like, how is that a good diet for a human?
Well, we're not arguing whether or not it's a good diet. We're arguing whether or not
Humans
humans
are
are carnivores.
and in order to even eat plants, we have to cook them in most cases or cover them in some sauce just to make them
Wait.
taste good. Whereas we could just shove a piece of fucking steak in our throat and
But
just
you just
swallow it.
but you just admitted we could eat it after we cook it. So you just conceded the point.
Do you not understand that carnivorous species can eat plant material in many cases, and also herbivores
eat,
can eat
sure.
meat? You know, a
Eat,
deer
sure, like,
can eat a piece of steak, and a
Yeah,
cow and a wolf can eat fucking grass and whatever. You know,
well, like, dude,
they're
I
not
can
going to
eat like
digest it, but they can utilize it for like the fiber in some way.
okay. I can eat plastic, right? But obviously it's not about like what you can like physically put into your mouth and swallow. It's about what you can derive nutrients from, and we can very clearly
Okay,
derive
I'd use
nutrients from
a better
plants.
example then, which is that a wolf will sometime eat berries, which has some benefit to them. Obviously, not as much as meat, which is by far their main diet. But yes, a wolf, for example, will eat like berries.
If wolves can derive nutrients from berries, berries are not meat. Therefore, wolves are not carnivores by the definition in
That's
Wikipedia.
wrong. There's no
Well,
animal in the universe then that's a carnivore. Nothing on the planet then would be a carnivore.
that may be the case.
Everything can eat some plant.
That may be the case, but there are two colloquial meanings, and then there is the definition that we've got, which is like the Wikipedia definition. So the first colloquial meaning is like they only eat meat. They may be able to eat other things and derive nutrients from them, but they like only eat that thing, right? So is somebody who like Jordan Peterson who only eats red meat would be considered a carnivore by that one, right? Humans clearly are not that kind of carnivore because I eat non-meat. Okay, there's like we've already thrown that one out the window. Then the other colloquial meaning is
All right, listen.
in
Here's
line with
the Wikipedia
Wikipedia
definition.
one.
You read it completely wrong with your vegan brain. A carnivore, meaning meat eater, Latin caro. Genitive carnis, meaning meat or flesh, or vorare, meaning to devour, is an animal whose food and energy requirement derive solely from animal tissue, which means that they only need to eat meat. In other words, humans, like for example, a human only needs to eat meat. That's the only food group. If you were only to eat meat, you would survive. You get it?
Mm-hmm.
A carnivore, meaning meat eater, is an animal whose food and energy requirements derive solely from animal tissue or meat, which means that they only need to eat meat theoretically to survive, which includes humans, which means humans are carnivores.
That's possibly a fair way of reading that. That's not how I was reading it, obviously, but maybe food and energy requirements derive solely from animal tissue or meat. Huh. Oh, yeah. So there's like so it goes on and says animals that depend solely on animal flesh for their nutrient requirements
Yeah, see,
are
it means
called
that,
obligate carnivores. While those that also consume non-animal food are called facultative carnivores. So we would probably be considered facultative carnivores if that's the kind of carnivore we would be considered. So omnivores also consume.
That definition fits. I would
Right,
say
right. So yeah, exactly. So like a facultative carnivore is actually like a it's not in contradiction with being an omnivore. So we're like omnivores and carnivores. So if that's what you mean, in the sense that like
means that humans are carnivores. Therefore,
sure.
you concede the debate.
No, I don't concede the debate. I don't concede the debate because your proposition was a conjunction of two things. But I concede that I can't show that humans aren't carnivores because fair enough by that definition. But we've already handled veganism is not an agenda, so at this point we can probably just leave it up to the vote.
All right.
But yeah, just to reiterate my thing with veganism not being an agenda, it's like, yeah, vegans have agendas, but veganism itself is a belief system and an ideology or a practice. It is not itself
I
a
would say that
plan
veganism
or
includes
motivation
all of
or an
those things.
intention.
The agenda of veganism is part of veganism.
Yeah.
Like, think about this: is communism both an ideology and an agenda? Like, if I'm a communist, then I have a communist agenda to put forth communism. Just like if I'm a vegan, then I have a vegan agenda as part of my veganism. Part of my ideology is that I want to promote veganism, which means that veganism is an agenda as well as a practice and an ideology. That's what some raw goat bladder sack will do for you. When you eat a raw goat bladder.
Okay, so can somebody like conclude this and
Oh, I
do the
guess,
vote thing?
yeah, King was hosting. I guess he might be AFK. But cool, we'll
Yeah.
put it to a voting poll then. So we can do one of two voting polls. We could do the first voting poll with the 3 questions, or we could do the voting poll where it just asks, like, who won, this person or this person. What would you guys prefer?
3 question. Woo.
Yes, I agree. It also is a sign from the heavens that we should do that one, because I also had 3 slices of whale blubber sack.
Alright, I'll take that as a concurrent of the 3-question voting poll. So everybody here is eligible to vote except for, how do you say that? Farazatra? If you could refrain from voting, I'd really appreciate it. And to everyone else, excluding the debaters, if you could vote so that way we can conclude a winner for the debate, I'd really appreciate it. And thank you guys again for debating. I'll move you guys to series.